You ever get the feeling something really bad is about to happen?
Cataclysm, Armageddon, the Apocalypse. By any name, a world-ending event can be the canvas on which your story will be painted. Now, every campaign needs stakes, a threat, a ticking clock. But where do you start? The answer, perhaps, is a world-threatening conflict. Whether it's the return of the big bad evil giraffe or a new threat on the world stage, it's all classic D&D fun. But what kind of calamity is right for you? Let's shop around until we find the right apocalypse that fits your budget. Let's break the world together. We love a definition around these parts: a world-ending threat. A happening or series of events that causes the widespread and prolonged destruction or distortion of the world and/or its inhabitants, especially that of a nature that is difficult to reverse, spans globally, and will grow more salient with time.
Ouch.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this topic, I want to talk about the build-up to the endgame. At some point, the players will stumble upon the knowledge of their impending doom. This could be through lore, a godly vision, or a chance encounter with an upstanding cult of informative psychopaths. You could call this an exposition or info dump, but it doesn't have to be. I like to deliver these key plot elements through a meaningful encounter, whether that's combat, a backstory NPC, or even a shared dream or vision. If a character has direct ties to the apocalypse through their backstory or some other means, even better.
My father,
Dracula,
is a man of science.
I once ran a game where the wizard player, character, kicked off the world-ending event. He had arrived from a different dimension and in doing so inadvertently damaged the planar seals binding an ancient entity that went on to be the main antagonist. Whatever the cause, the marketing for the apocalypse is important too. If the apocalypse is indisputably happening, such as the sun vanishing from the sky or a barbershop quartet of dragons aggressively remodeling the town, the world will rally to the hero's side, pretty much guaranteed.
Is that the whole point of the Doomsday Machine is lost? If you keep it a secret, why didn't you tell the world, eh?
These are factors to consider when choosing a world-ending event. How will the heroes learn about the upcoming apocalypse? One approach is to align the method of delivery with their classes. Clerics, druids, monks, even paladins or warlocks can receive an expositive vision from beyond. I like to have extraplanar entities aggressively possess one of the party members to speak with their voice and deliver the news. Barbarians and rangers can hear reports of strange creatures and bad omens out in the wilds, massive die-offs, crop circles, that kind of thing. The bard, fighter, and rogue may get offered a shady contract, and turns out it's from a cult who is aggressively hiring people to prepare for their leader's rebirth. Finally, sorcerers, wizards, and I suppose artificer could be contacted by a mage guild to gather evidence and lore about the upcoming apocalypse. Perhaps a member of the local mage guild is a diviner and they have foreseen the end, they just need help to prove it. Whatever you decide, do it in a way that matters. Get the point across. We are about to discuss the different types of world-ending events. While we discuss each type in turn, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a cultist or minion of the villain. What are they offering that appeals to you? What are your motivations for helping them?
That's disgusting. We just want the hat back.
With those questions in the back of our mind, cue the end of the world. We can group the different types of world-ending events into a few loose categories. Number 1. Bring forth the villain. Vecna, Vlad Dracula, Voldemort. Others whose names don't start with V. The return of a once-defeated villain is possibly the most common threat in all of D&D. One entity with the power to end the world. A lot of published D&D adventures have this premise. They will usually slap the villain on the cover to make a point. The plot involves the heroes racing to stop a cult from resurrecting or freeing the villain. Typically, these beings are powerful in ways mortals can't comprehend, and it's self-evident that the hero would want to stop them. Maybe it's in their nature to destroy the world, or maybe they were brought to this point. The advantage of a villain approach is that it has a lot of range. You can make them annoying, terrifying, sympathetic, and the story can take place before, during, or after their rise to power. It's easy to put ourselves in the shoes of the villain's follower. Maybe they have a deal with the villain, or believe in their cause. Maybe they're in love with them and wish to rule by their side. Critical Role has a great rogues gallery and is an awesome showcase for world-ending entities. the Whispered One who will bring forth an undying age of darkness, the Eyes of Nine who will assimilate all beings into their insane hive mind.
Welcome.
And also there was a big fish guy. Typically, once the villain emerges, they will have a goal that will align with the other categories of world-ending events, making them a great jumping-off point. The downside of this approach is that villains have a habit of just disappearing into the background of the story. The party might not even meet them until the campaign is practically over, or the campaign won't run long enough to give them that proper build-up. Or, if you're like me, you give them a cool-sounding name, or at least it sounds cool to you, then one of the players makes a joke about it, suddenly everyone's laughing, and nobody takes their villain seriously.
My people called it Galactus.
Sometimes you just need a threat that is more involved, that doesn't rely on a single entity, which is what our next category is all about.
Supernatural Scourge.
I played in a game many years ago where magical force was slowly crystallizing the flora and fauna of the land. Merely touching an infected specimen was enough to see the plague slowly overtake a person until they were crystalline and alien. Birds made of crystal perched on crystal tree branches, and crystal people wandered about aimlessly, emitting ear-piercing shrieks. A jagged mockery of life. It was profoundly frightening when we found ourselves trapped in a cave with the crystal tides slowly spreading across the floor towards us. This is the power of a supernatural scourge, an ongoing supernatural threat that promises to be disastrous should the heroes fail to stop it. While a natural, mundane disaster can form a nice set piece for like a skill challenge or something, a supernatural scourge is profound and terrifying. We'll talk about avalanches, volcanoes, and tsunamis in a little bit here, but for now we're going to focus on the supernatural side of things. A supernatural scourge comes in myriad forms: an eldritch epidemic, a creeping crystal plague, or a secret invasion of shape-shifting nightmares. They threaten the balance of the world and the safety of its inhabitants. These threats are usually a slow burn and evolving, with the heroes seeking out a cure or a weakness, some piece of information, key to stopping it. The first season of The Walking Dead and the character's death march to the CDC fits in this parameter. Or the brain from the movie 9, an entity that will keep on creating more and more minions until it is stopped. The heroes may first encounter a supernatural disaster after the damage has been done. Think John Carpenter's The Thing or Alien. On the villain side of things, perhaps the antagonists are welcoming the supernatural into their world to shake up the status quo. Perhaps it was brought in by accident. Maybe they can exert some level of control over it and will use it to their advantage. Honestly, I recommend coming up with your own version of some disease or slowly spreading entity, best if it doesn't have an intuitive solution, because once the players put in the work to figure out how to stop it, they will feel like real heroes, like nobody else could have done it. The paradigm shift. A paradigm shift means something fundamental about the world will be altered if the heroes are not successful. This is perhaps the least overtly destructive way to threaten the world. I was recently watching Castlevania Nocturne, and the villain of that story is powerful enough to move the moon in front of the sun, seemingly forever. The paradigm shift here is that now vampires can walk freely without fear of becoming... This is obviously bad for the heroes, vampire hunters, as it empowers the antagonists. Remember, I asked you to think what a minion or lieutenant would be getting out of a villain's actions. Well, if that person was a vampire, there you go. Think about some aspect of your world that serves the heroes. What abilities do they take for granted? What privileges, once removed, would they stop at nothing to try and recover? Until the heroes are successful, death saving throws are failed automatically. That will light a fire under any party. The paradigm shift is a great motivator, but it does run the risk of frustrating your players, so put some thought into what you're taking from them. You want them motivated to fix things, not so frustrated that the fun is lost.
Pure destruction.
We're ending with what might be the simplest method of breaking the world: pure destruction. The heroes become aware of an event, weapon, or entity that threatens destruction on a massive scale. Think of Sozin's Comet from The Last Airbender, the climax of every Marvel film ever made, a giant death laser from your favorite sci-fi franchise, or any Godzilla movie. Basically anything that spells game over for a lot of innocent people. We touched on natural disasters before. The pure destruction route can be a boosted natural disaster. One volcanic eruption is bad, but not world-ending. But what would happen if every volcano on the planet were to erupt simultaneously? Or every coastline flood permanently? Maybe a villain is set to awaken an ancient beast that will make that happen. I just realized where that inspiration came from. Pure destruction can also take the form of a single monster or group of monsters, so powerful that they leave ruin in their wake. A titan awakens and only a ragtag adventuring party can bring it down. 4 dragons have sacked the capital, and they are just getting started. If you go this route, I recommend having it tied to an event in the world.
You ever get the feeling something really bad is about to happen?
You've messed with the natural order!
The pure destruction route is a double-edged sword. It can start off the campaign, or be the natural conclusion or consequence should the heroes fail. Its simplicity is its greatest strength, but also its greatest weakness. It can go into any game, but it usually isn't interesting enough on its own. It works well enough for a one-shot, but you may need to massage it and give it some more life. By now, it might be obvious that each of these categories can bleed into the other. Some of these examples could apply to any and all. I would argue that this is a good thing, though. You should be trying to weave stories that have some nuance, some texture, some duplicity. Have your story start with a villain that unleashes a supernatural scourge that throws the world so out of balance that it causes destruction on a massive scale. Mix and match. I'm a DM, not a cop.
We are here to get annihilated.
My goal for this video is to hopefully inspire newer DMs with these examples and perhaps validate you seasoned DMs that are currently reflecting on your old campaigns thinking, I did a really good job with that villain. We all try our best to weave these tales for our players that are detailed but not too complicated, textured but not convoluted. It's a tightrope that every DM, every storyteller walks. You'll find different ways to engage people, to pull people into the plots as you grow as a storyteller. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, were entertained, or ideally both. Let me know in the comments below, what world-ending event are you facing in your campaign right now? What is going on? Is it a villain re-emerging? Is it a supernatural scourge, a paradigm shift, pure destruction? What combination is happening in your game right now? And if you're one of the few intelligent, attractive, charming people to get to the end of this video, please subscribe to the channel because I told you to. Goodbye.